There's a difference. Okay? Same thing as far as going back to as far as vice is concerned. There are certain crimes that affect certain areas, and you cannot ignore that. That's the truth. And you have to be aware of what you're doing in certain areas. Just like there are some places where you can perhaps drive in the city and do fine late at night. There are other parts of the city where you might want to be a little bit more watchful. And all you have to do is look at the statistics. This bears this out. Well, it's the same thing as far as this is concerned. This is something that I've learned. We understand at the root of it that is Satan. He says that he kills, steals, and destroys, right? But I'm understanding that as it relates to people, that the hatred that is manifested through people is different for different people. As we see when I answer these calls, and the people who you run up against, and you see what took place here. It's the same thing spiritually, that there is, at the root of it, is a lack of understanding, a lack of reverence for God. However, we see that it is depicted in the earth, in people, believers, as well as unbelievers, and especially unbelievers, as far as the hatred that is demonstrated and poured out upon the people. Everybody follow me? I'm trying to say this as nice as I can to keep it here. But it's the truth, it's the reality of who we are, how God made us. We can't ignore that. So we have to be watchful within the earth when we're out. It's wisdom to do that. That's His word. That's His wisdom to do that. There's some things that I have to teach my children, especially, with the ones who are growing up. Trey, this is something that we talk about. And it doesn't make it right, but it makes it reality that when you're out at night, you need to be watchful. We teach him to place his hand if he's ever stopped. Put it where it can be seen. I know this being an officer for several years, and one of the second to domestic calls, traffic stop is the most deadly time for officers. And we're seeing right now it's most deadliest time for certain people as well. That's out on the street. The numbers prove it. You can't ignore that. You can't just say, hey, have faith and go. Well, you can't say that. It wouldn't be wisdom to do that. So I teach him to, and I teach the others to, when you're stopped, to place your arms where you can see it. Now, that brings about because of who he is, which is the way he's been, which the way I am. I was born this way. I look the same way, just grown, bigger, taller throughout my years. Nothing has changed. When I accepted Christ, when I accepted Yeshua, there was a change on the inside of me. But the physical look of me never changed. That didn't change. Okay, so I have to be mindful of that. I have to be aware of that and use God's wisdom when I'm walking this earth here. We talked about that. He said that He's the God of this world. Okay, to teach that that's not the case, and that because we believe that you won't have to deal with anything that's specific to you, which is not always the case across the board, will be untrue. You with me? Y'all follow me? Okay, so with that in mind, I'm going to look at Colossians 2:8. We're going to be done here. And he says, beware lest any man spoil you through philosophy and vain deceit, after the tradition of what? Men, and after the rudiments of the world, and not after Christ. Okay, so we're going to look at that real quick and break that down. But I also want to look at the bringings, right? Acts 17:10-11. And read this real quick. And the brethren immediately sent away Paul and Silas by night into Berea, who coming thither went into the synagogue of Jews. These were more noble than those in Thessalonica, in that they receive the word with all readiness of mind and search the scriptures daily, whether those things were so. Right? So the reason why I'm keying on this because he said he searched the scriptures daily, whether those things were so. Right? And we also know that in 2 Timothy it says that, read that real quick, 2 Timothy 3:16. This is a passage we're all familiar with. It says that all scripture is given by inspiration of God and is profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, for instruction in righteousness. And then he goes on to explain why. So that the man of God may be perfect, thoroughly furnished unto all good works. Now go back to the Bereans. The reason why we're talking about this is because it says that they were more noble and that they searched the scriptures daily, whether those things were so. Right? Noble means ingenuous. It says free from reserve or disguise, equivocation, or dissimulation. Right? That word should come to mind, the scripture should come to mind for many of us here. It says the Bereans were candid and of excellent disposition. Right? Ready to receive truth. Alright? Alright, now let's see. And that word, like I spoke earlier about as far as dissimulation, Romans 12:2-9. It says, be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. And verse 9 says, let love be without dissimulation, which means hypocrisy. Okay? It says, abhor that which is evil, cleave to that which is good. Now, I'm going to say this again now. He was talking about the Bereans here. I'm going to tell you what the Berean Study Bible says, the same scripture. Okay? It says Colossians 2:8 reads like this, according to the Berean Study Bible. It says, see to it that no one takes you captive through philosophy and empty deception, which are based on human tradition and spiritual forces of the world, rather than on Christ, which is what we talked about earlier, as far as Ephesians 6:12 is concerned. All right. I'm just taking to read another one too. Berean Literal Bible says, take heed lest there will be anyone taking you captive through philosophy and conceit, according to the tradition of men, according to the principles of the world, and not according to Christ. So, just going to look at this real quick. Beware. Okay? Well, let's look at captives first. Captive means a prisoner taken by force or stratagem, a plan or scheme, especially one used to outwit an opponent or achieve an end. In war, by an enemy. Let's look at beware. Beware means to take heed, take notice, to perceive. Remember I said we got to perceive our environment. This is what we have. I've heard this a lot. I've used this. I've heard it down through the years. Walter saying, use what you got. This is what God bless you. This is the way He made you. You need to be aware of that and be cognizant of that. Okay. It says spoil. Spoil means to lead away, to seduce. It says to lead away as booty, B-O-O-T-Y, and that's not talking about your backside. But in the 1828, it means spoil taken from an enemy in war, plunder, or pillage, to strip of money or goods by open violence as troops pillage or camp in town. Plunder is to rob as a thief or take from, to strip as a thief plundered the house. And we know that John 10:10 says, the thief cometh not, but to steal, kill, and to destroy. Well, let's look at philosophy here. Now, sophistry is what it breaks down to in the Greek, 5385. Fallacious reasoning. I heard that earlier. I think I heard Little Dave talking about this morning about reasoning. We're going to talk about that a little bit. Reasoning, which is sound in appearance only, right? Proverbs 14 and 12 is what comes to mind, right? I'm sure many of you as well. It says, there is a way that seemeth right unto a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death. These men, and then it gives an example. It says, these men have obscured and confounded the nature of things by their false principles and wretched sophistry. So, what we're saying here is that we have to be aware of these things. There are men, there have been those who have, as it said, confounded the nature of things by their false principles. What are principles? Okay? Or better yet, to go back to the way that seemeth right or sound appearance. The word seem is to appear, the same thing. So it's saying the same thing in Scripture. It's saying there's a way that seemeth right. Just like this definition for fallacious reasoning. It says reasoning sound in appearance only. All right, a little bit further of fallacious, which is deceptive, deceiving, deceitful, wearing a false appearance, misleading, producing error or mistake. And then we're going to look at deceit as well too. I'm trying to be conscious of the time. I'm trying to get done here. Just a few more moments. Deceit deals with delusion, the act of deluding or deception, a misleading of the mind. So, what we're looking for, in reasoning, tradition. Let's look at tradition. Tradition is a precept, traditionary law, or ordinance. That's the key word there, ordinance. You guys familiar with any ordinance? We have those. We have loud music ordinances. There's all types of ordinances, Kenny can tell you. But there are other ordinances as well, so we're looking for these things. He's telling us that these are the things that we need to be aware of. And rudiment deals with the principle. Something orderly in arrangement, right? That's what it is in the Greek. And rudiment and also principle are basically synonyms. Rudiment, verb tense means to furnish with first principles or rules, to ground, to settle first principles, the primary rules of any art or science are its rudiments. Okay. Then also principle in a general sense, the cause, the source of origin. The source of origin. That's very important. That's the reason why we go back and look at things as far as the holidays are concerned. We should always check the origin of where it comes from. In everything that we do. That's what 1 Thessalonians 5:2 is talking about. Prove, which means to test, to examine, to discern all things. So, and then we know the world. It says tradition of the world, which is something that we talked about earlier today, and it says all that's in the world. I'm not sure what you can look it up, but what scripture is that? We know that all that's in the world, three things are lust of the eyes, lust of the flesh, pride of life. So he's telling us that these are the things that we need to be aware of. And so in your own time, I'm going to close this out here, in your own time, take a closer look at Colossians 2 and 8 and read those to understand what we're dealing with, because he's saying that these principles, there are principles, there is philosophy, right? There are teachings from the very beginning that we learned that we hadn't really checked. And we need to go back and check it. We need to go back, prove, discern, examine all things. Okay? And I think I believe that's about it there. And I'll close there. So, thank you for your patience. Thank you for your time.
Let your light shine. Let your light shine before me. Let your light shine. Let Doesn't it feel good to know someone came to the truth because of you? Letting your light shine through and letting them see the Spirit of Christ in you. Matthew 5 and verse 16. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in